Okay, hey, it's Darren, and this is episode 2 of the Darren Laws podcast. And in this episode, I kind of want to do a little bit of a run through of my background, a little bit of a digital audio CV, I guess, but not just talking about me and how great I am, and because that's not really of value to anybody. I want to actually dig out some key learnings, some things that you can apply to the business or the role that you're in, and generate some results. But also there's some key resources that I'm going to talk about later on in the podcast that's going to be really valuable to you and has been really valuable to me. And there's also going to be a giveaway. So first of all, let's get into the podcast and what I'm going to be talking about. So I started my career my background is in engineering. So I'm an engineer in manufacturing. So that's where the manufacturing stuff comes from and how I got started in that industry. And I didn't realize, but basically what I was good at was not just the engineering side, but it was because I have a brain for business, or I've always been interested in business. Business has always been a passion of mine since I was a kid. I could remember my father talking about somebody who had a business in the local town, and I was just fascinated. I wanted to know more about it, wanted to know more about this business and the guy and stuff like that. And just that from an early age, I was always selling stuff. I was growing vegetables and selling them. I was making rabbit hutches and selling them. I was mowing people's lawns and painting their houses, and I had a gardening business when I got a little bit older, but was still at school. But looking back, it's business is all that I was interested in, and even at school I wasn't really interested. The only 2 weeks that I had any value for me at school was the 2 weeks about business, and it was just 2 weeks in the whole time I was there. The rest of it was absolutely pointless because I wasn't being taught in a way that I was interested in and didn't feel that I was learning from. So anyway, back to the engineering stuff. That's kind of why I think that I was good at the engineering, or the part of it that I do, which is the kind of looking at it from a business problem point of view. So if there's a process issue, I would run towards that. If there's a machine that's not working, I run towards that. But fundamentally, because I see it as a business problem, if that machine is not generating whatever the product is that it makes, then the business is not making money. And if there's a more efficient way of doing something, I was always trying to get wherever it was that I was working bought into it, and they weren't geared up that way. So that led to me looking other places and going to Unilever. And Unilever at the time was it was for Coleman's Mustard in Norwich, which was, they were paying way more, probably 20-30% more than I was on at the time for their engineers, but 20% more than anybody else. And the reason for that was that they wanted to be able to take their pick of who was in the market. They knew that by paying more than everybody else, they would have a long line out the door of people trying to get in there. They also knew that people in there would have something that they could lose. So it meant that you were naturally more focused. You certainly had an air of a confidence about you, and arrogance, because you were one of a very small few people that had been given that sort of opportunity. So like from a recruiting point of view, if you can install any of that kind of stuff into it, it's really pivotal to being able to then move a business from taking whoever you can get hold of to actually thinking about who you want and generating a line out the door of people climbing over themselves trying to get in to your place. And that's a really good position to be in. If you're a recruiter if you're looking to employ people. So the other thing that Unilever were really good at was they knew who they wanted. They spent a lot of time, they spent a lot of money as well on recruiting agencies that were very focused on the analytics and the psychology side of it, and they understood who they wanted and what that person, how they thought, how they acted, and we went through a full day of testing and interviews and all of this kind of stuff to narrow down and get an understanding of what people, what made people tick, and ultimately that was what led to me getting the job. They wanted somebody that was focused on improvements, that was frustrated they couldn't make the improvements that they wanted to in the current role that they were in, and they wanted to. That was the person they wanted, because they wanted people that were focused on making their business better, making the factory more efficient, solving all of the problems, removing the problems from the process. It's just theory of constraints. So if you look up theory of constraints, it's basically a process is only as efficient as the weakest part in that process. So we were pushed to identify the weakest part in the process, and it could be whatever, it could be any part of that process. They didn't care that I was an engineer and it needed to be engineering. That didn't matter. They were go and find problems, come back and tell us. Come back with a solution. So we could identify problems in any part of the business and pretty much, and they would listen. Certainly in the process, in the manufacturing side. So that kind of led to forming my thinking that later on about that theory of constraints, which is completely applicable to sales and marketing and any form of process. So after Unilever, obviously learned a lot from there, but didn't really understand how much I'd learned until I left and gone other places. And I left there because I had a property business that I started, and it was doing well, and we were buying houses, and I was at a road, a junction, and I needed to decide whether I was going all in or I was going to carry on engineering. So I went all in, left Unilever, and learnt a lot about sales, marketing, finance, and how the processes and frameworks that I'd learned at Unilever were directly applicable and had transferred from the manufacturing side, and in enabling me to engineer results in other business areas, whether it was sales or marketing or whatever it was. That business really helped me. As I said, it did really well. I was effectively retired by the time I was 30. I didn't need to do anything, but I had a business partner, and he was and still is one of the smartest people I've ever met, but he wasn't doing everything that he said. And because I was focused on, look at me, look how good I am, I've made it, I don't need to work anymore, I don't need to do anything, I was not paying attention to what he was doing. Whether the results in the other areas in the business were actually there. I was looking at what was coming back, and as long as I was getting the money every month, I wasn't paying attention. So that was the mistake, and one of the learning points there is I guess is formulated that leading or lagging indicators. The lagging indicator was money in the bank. But what was going into that? What was the leading indicator? Was I paying attention to how much money was going to be coming into the bank in 3 months, 5 months, 6 months? And I wasn't paying attention to what he was doing. And he'd created a bit of a mess because he wasn't as smart as he thought he was, and the market turned, and he couldn't do everything that he was doing. And that caused, there was a lot of things that aligned to create a perfect storm, a perfect shitstorm that erupted. And ultimately, I ended up losing everything. He went to prison. not because of how he acted in this business, but because he tried to dig himself out of the problem by committing VAT fraud, and you don't generally get away with that. So it was an interesting time. So he also ran a letting agency that managed other people's properties, not just mine. I took control of that, basically, or took control of the properties to turn them around, to get everybody else that was involved in that whole saga to get them back above water. And I did a pretty good job of turning that around, but ultimately I couldn't do enough with what I had. I'd lent him money as well, so I had a big problem. I needed money. I'd given it away. That wasn't coming back, and it was a long and slow and painful death, but eventually I lost it all and had to start again. So, I mean, there was massive learning points and takeaways from that business. One of the big ones that I learned was ownership and accountability. You are in complete control and nobody else. You can't blame anybody else. You have nobody else to say I couldn't. It would have been easy for me to say, look, this guy's made a mess of it. I'm completely innocent. There's nothing I could do. But I chose not to take that approach. I chose to say, look, this is on me. I missed it. I wasn't paying attention. I could have done more, and I didn't. Blaming other people, blaming him, was not going to get me anything. I wasn't going to learn anything from that. But going inside, deep inside, and thinking, instead of partitioning it, instead of making him the evil business partner and justifying it and justifying the outcome, I took the view of, I can't control other people. I can't control how they act or what they do, but I can control what I do. I can control how I interpret things, how I manage things, how I keep track of what people are doing. I guess what I learned was trust but verify. Trust people are doing what you expect them to do, but verify that they are doing that. And that was the big learning point from that whole mess. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some dark times, and it wasn't all about being completely dignified in defeat. That was what I was projecting. I went through some dark times. I certainly contemplated whether I was any value to the world, but I didn't take that out on anybody else. I owned it. I owned the problems. I ultimately drew that line under that episode, took my learnings from it. It took me longer to recover than it could have done and should have done, but it was a dark time. So one of the other things I learned from that, I guess I also learned from Unilever, it was that zero blame culture. There was a absolutely zero blame culture. Blame doesn't help anybody. If you're pointing a finger at somebody else, there's always three pointing back at you. So what they focused on there was that there was no value in blame, and the only value is find out what went wrong and find out how to solve it. Stop it from happening again. Doesn't matter who made a mistake. It matters that a mistake was able to be made because the system and the process wasn't good enough to cope with it. After that, I had a direct marketing business, so we was selling a digital product, and I was emailing the list that I had. I had a sizable list at the time, or built a sizable list, emailing it daily. And when you're emailing a list daily, you need to drive people to an offer, and in order to make money and keep the business turning over and moving forward and stuff like that, you really learn how to strengthen that muscle. You learn what works and what doesn't. So I was learning email marketing, I was learning sales copywriting, I was putting that all in action. I was driving people to the sales page, and depending on how well the page converted and moved people down that slope, the more sales I made on there. And that was a massive step forward in my marketing. Ultimately, that business wasn't that successful. It did okay, but it wasn't that successful. What I learned from that the strengthening that marketing muscle, the learning how to apply the engineering brain, the mindset of optimization to that, to improving the conversions, to systematically figure out how you write an email every day, how you communicate with that audience, how you build a relationship with them, all of that kind of stuff that goes around it. Ultimately, that was a massive learning point. If you think in terms of wider business, the copywriting, the words that you write about your business in a leaflet, in a letter, in a banner, in a trade stall, in your sales brochures, and how you deliver your offers to your customers and stuff like that, all of that is copywriting. All of it can be improved. All of it can be optimized. And when you go through that process of optimizing and improving it, you will then move forward in how many sales you make out of every 100 offers that you make. You can systematically engineer improvements in that process. And it doesn't matter what business you are in, you have a sales process, you have a marketing process, something is sold, a product is built, you can improve all of it. I really encourage you to start learning about the sales process, the copywriting process, how you can implement how you sell in word form, how you can implement some psychological triggers. And a great book that will help you with that is Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. I actually have 6 copies of this book that I've had sitting around for a while, and I'm going to give them away. So the first 6 people that make a comment on either iTunes or the Google Play Store or wherever you're listening to a great resource for learning how to persuade people to do stuff in your marketing and your business and stuff like that, and get more people through that process, is Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And I actually have 6 copies of this lying around somewhere. I'm going to give these copies away to the first 6 people that comment and leave us a review on either the Apple iTunes podcast store or Google Play and Spotify, wherever you're listening to this, really. And if you reach out to me at darren@darrenlaws.com, I'll organise getting a book out to you. We will be doing a bit of a deeper dive into the marketing side and the marketing business, because it's a business driver. I've always been interested in that side. So there's a lot that can be taken from that and implemented into any business, really. Some things don't. They don't always apply, but there is a lot that you can do. And in industrial and engineering and manufacturing businesses, there's a lot that you can implement into those businesses to help more people get through your funnel and end up with more sales, which is what we want to do. We want to be able to systematically grow our businesses, and we want to make them more efficient in the middle bit, so we're not spending as much time and money and pain in the doing process, in the operations side, whether it's manufacturing or whatever we're doing. And we want to make them more profitable, so they're around for longer, they're more enjoyable to run, they're more enjoyable to work in, and all of that kind of stuff. So after that, I kind of honed that optimization and business engineering brain, how the marketing and business and engineering side come together. And I did that with Conversion House, which was a conversion optimization agency. Ultimately, at that time, I was probably a bit early to market, and it didn't really take off. We had some customers, we did quite well, got them some really good results, improved their marketing conversions from email, from their landing pages, from multiple different sources across their websites, and can really generate some improved profitability on businesses just by applying all of this stuff. So that really kind of tied them all together. From that, I went on to Excedo, which was it's a prop tech startup, and I built a team for that one. We had a team working on it. We was building a product. We were going to attack the estate agency market in the UK. I'm not going to go into too many details about what we were doing or how we were doing it, because it still has legs. I still want to get back to that one. Ultimately, at the time, COVID came around at the point where we were trying to raise money. So the first lockdown, we was like, whoa, glad I didn't raise any money. That would have been painful. And then ultimately it would have been in a good position coming out at the other end of it, but you don't know this stuff. COVID changed the world, changed everybody's viewpoints, so the team went in different directions, and it ended up being parked, and it's ready to go at some point or other, and I still want to. It still has legs. The estate agency market in the UK certainly needs some disruption. There's not a lot of disruption going on, and we're coming at it from a different angle. So anyway, from there, during lockdown, after that we parked that. I started a furniture manufacturing company, and we were doing industrial type furniture. Was doing pretty well. It was interesting to run through lockdown. Startups in that kind of industry are hard work, but we did all right. Ultimately, we were getting a lot of our interest from organic search, selling on Shopify. I have quite a bit of experience with search engine optimization and be able to get people from Google to a website and all of that kind of stuff. I was able to dig into my manufacturing background there and setting things up, improving processes. That's the bit that I really like and the bit I'm really good at. Changing, optimizing workstations and processes. You can really make a big difference in manufacturing companies and really turn them around, sometimes quite quickly. So this is something I have a lot of experience with, working with the corporates, Unilever, Honda, Britvic, other big manufacturers. And the biggest and the most successful focus on optimization. They absolutely focus on it completely, always improving how they produce their products, the processes that are in the place, and the people side that make it all come together. Unilever, when I was there, it was one of the best performing, most efficient factories in Unilever UK, and high world class in OEE terms. If you're from manufacturing, you understand them. We were high 80s, one of the most efficient factories in the world, just by focusing on all of this stuff systematically and making sure that things are moving in the right direction. All of that experience really went into develop and honing the operations part of the business blueprint, which is what I call that whole process of taking a business, developing a blueprint for getting it from where it is now to where it wants to be, from start to finish and everything in between. That was kind of started at Unilever, honed everywhere else, honed in my own businesses. I haven't just learned this stuff by working in somebody else's business. I've put my own money on the table, and when you do that, when it's your own money, when you're responsible for paying wages and things like that, you have a different level of accountability. You see things differently than you do if you're employed to do a role, and ultimately it's not your business. It certainly hones your thinking. You really know what works and what doesn't, and you can see what happens. So that really, those experiences combined is really what's helped me to develop the processes and the stuff that I do. Whether you're a food and drink manufacturer or machinery manufacturer or a fabricator or electrical contractor or whatever your business is, how you organize that workflow, that manufacturing workflow, and the processes you have in place to deal with every eventuality is really quite critical. It determines your success and profitability. Often if a manufacturer is struggling this part, the problems can be identified and turned around, sometimes quickly, sometimes not so. It depends. There's lots of other stuff, as you can imagine, that go into these things. People get into it, and the processes are easy. The processes, spotting where the problems are, that's not too bad. It's not too difficult. The process and how to improve things, that's not too bad. But when you throw all of that at people, then it can become complicated, because you have to manage people. You have to manage that change. How do you make sure that change is sustained? How do you know? Where are your KPIs to know whether you're still on the glide path? How do you go back in to assess whether that procedure that you've set up is actually being used and regularly? And so that's the nuance. That's the bit where the money hits the road kind of thing, or the rubber hits the road. This has basically brought us back up to date, up to where we are now. Currently, I'm still working with big manufacturers, but more and more I'm moving to helping and working with small businesses, manufacturing, engineering businesses, to optimize and get them to a position to be able to ultimately exit, the owners to exit that business and help them to do that, if that's what they want to do. And if they want to grow, then I help them to do that as well, and grow quite significantly. So, and there's a few ways we do that. Obviously, all the stuff that I talk about, but there's other things we can do as well. So helping them acquire other businesses that can help them, double their turnover in a day. We're going to be going into some of that kind of stuff. Look, if you're a manufacturing or engineering company that is looking to exit in the next few years, or you're looking to grow significantly, or maybe you even have a problem that you're dealing with at the moment and you want some help with, reach out to me at Darren at darrenlaws.com, and we'll see if we can work together to make that happen. Now, realistically, I can only take on 1 to 2 more businesses at the moment, so I may not be able to help you. Reach out to me and we'll see if we get along and if we can make that happen for you. And for everybody else, I'm going to be going into detail in all the coming episodes of how I do all of this, how you can apply it into your business, how you can generate these results. And with your feedback, we'll start to get people more involved in this, probably get some of you on the show, do some live stuff. That would be really cool to be able to pick a business apart in an episode and maybe even track some improvements 6 months and stuff like that. I think that's kind of interactive stuff would be really good. And regardless of whether I'm getting paid to do it or not, this stuff is something that I want to spend time doing. It's how my brain works, and if I'm thinking about this and talking about it, I'm absolutely in my element and in the what's the Japanese term for the little bit in the middle of the 2 circles. I can't remember it now. It's gone. So yeah, based upon me doing this kind of stuff for the last 20 years, is kind of, that's what we're going to be uncovering in on this channel, in the podcast, on the website, darren@darrenlaws.com. So please subscribe, like, share, comment, get involved. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of. I've got some planned that are talking about businesses that I'm currently working with. But if you can send me what you're doing, send me I've got a fabricating business. We make this. How do I increase sales or improve processes or whatever it is you're dealing with? Hit me up in the comments or email me and we'll get into it. I hope you find this useful. I'll be back shortly. See you later.